Let's break down our must-start defenses and streams for week 9 of the fantasy season. These are the defenses that you absolutely need to start this week if you want to dominate your league mates here in week 9 of the fantasy season. All right, we're going to kick the video off with the LA Chargers. You're going to be on the road to face the Tennessee Titans, coming off of a matchup against the Vikings where they had 12 fantasy points, only allowed 10 total points, had 5 sacks, a forced fumble, and an interception, and only allowed 164 total yards. They are only sitting at 30% rostered, and this is going to be essentially my must-start defense of the week, although I do think there's some really good options this week for you guys. We want to start whatever defense is playing Cam Ward and the Tennessee Titans on a week-to-week basis. We have talked about this for weeks now. Cam Ward, coming out of another game where he threw an interception, has an interception in every game since week 3 of the season, and he's had at least one turnover in every game this year, whether it's been a fumble or an interception. This is a great spot for the Chargers, who've been, a little bit up and down on the season in terms of defensive special teams start in fantasy. We're looking at 22 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, a fumble recovery, 7 interceptions on the season so far, but they have been solid enough. And once again, it just doesn't really matter. We are starting almost any defense that plays the Titans on a week-to-week basis. They are very opportunistic this past week against the Vikings and Carson Wentz. They're going to be opportunistic again here on the road in week 9. Not a lot to break down here. They are pretty lowly rostered, 30% rostered, had double digits this past week. They're playing Cam Ward and the Titans. Go pick them up. They are my must-start defense of the week here in week 9 of the fantasy season. Next up, we have the LA Rams coming out of their week 8 bye week. They had 12 fantasy points in week 7, the last time we saw them play, 19 in week 6 as well, and they're very lowly rostered at 31% rostered. They've had 9.2 fantasy points per game on the season so far, 26 sacks, 7 forced fumbles, 5 fumble recoveries, and 4 interceptions. And they have a great matchup this week against the Saints, who may be the next team that we want to start opposing defenses against on a week-to-week basis. Now, we saw Spencer Rattler get benched this past week, so I would say this early in the week, being that this is being recorded on Sunday night. We don't know for sure who the starting quarterback for the Saints is going to be this week, but does it really matter if it's Tyler Shuck or Spencer Rattler? Either way, this is a great matchup at home for the Rams. We saw Tyler Shuck 17 of 30, 128 passing yards, and interception, 12 yards on the ground. Spencer Rattler was 15 of 21, 136 passing yards, and interception, a lost fumble. Also had 12 yards on the ground. So either way, this is a great spot for the Rams, who can, come into this matchup, be absolutely opportunistic, cause potential turnovers. This is just a great spot. Very lowly rostered once again because they're coming out of their bye week. So there's a high chance they are available in your respective league. Once again, similar to the Chargers, there's just not a lot to break down here. Lowly rostered, double digits in their last performance, turnovers in their last performance, and they're facing one of the best potential matchups against a quarterback who is turning the football over. So the Rams, another fantastic start for you guys here in week 9 of the season. And we have a lot of good teams coming off for their bye week here in week 9. Let's go with the Jacksonville Jaguars as the next team that I want to talk about. Sitting at just 9% roster. The last time we saw them play in week 7, it was not good. -4 fantasy points. They've had 7.8 fantasy points per game on the season, 8 sacks, 5 forced fumbles, 4 fumble recoveries, 10 interceptions. Don't forget that. And 1 defensive touchdown on the year. So they are still a top 10 scoring fantasy defense on the year. I know that week 7 matchup overseas, against the Rams, they got absolutely decimated. They weren't good in week 6 either, but before that, they were on a historical pace with a crazy amount of turnovers, and this has been ultimately a very opportunistic defense here in the 2025 season. I think they're a very solid start here in week 9 of the season because, well, they're playing Geno Smith and the Raiders. Now, there has been some loose rumors that, we might get some Kenny Pickett in week 9. We did see him play a little bit in week 7 in that shutout against the Chiefs. The Raiders are coming out of their bye week, so anything is possible here, but really regardless of who the quarterback is, there's going to be potential for this this defense. Even though the Jaguars are on the road here, it's a great spot against the Raiders. Geno Smith has had, a fumble or an interception in every game since week 5 of the season. So it's a great spot for this Jaguars defense that once again hasn't been playing as good as of late, but has still had a very opportunistic season, causing a lot of turnovers. And once again, here in week 9 of the season, they're going to have even more potential for turnovers. So very, very lowly rostered. Good spot for you guys streaming defenses this week. I think that the Jaguars are going to be a must-start defense in week 9 of the season. And guess what? We got another team coming off of their bye week. That is the Detroit Lions, sitting around 46% rostered, averaging 9.7 fantasy points per game. And in week 7, had a really strong outing with a lot of injured players, backup players against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. 14 fantasy points, only allowed 9 total points, had 4 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, a fumble recovery, and an interception in that matchup. So on the year, 23 sacks, 9 forced fumbles, 4 fumble recoveries, and 7 interceptions. They are one of the top scoring defenses in fantasy football on the year. They've had double digits in 4 out of 7 of their performances on the year. And here in week 9, they're at home, which is always good for the Lions, and they're playing the Minnesota Vikings. I don't believe we're going to see Carson Wentz play. Maybe for the rest of the season, but definitely not here in week 9. He should have been pulled in that week 8 matchup against the Chargers. That shoulder injury just looked absolutely awful, but kudos to him for playing through it. But if we, for some reason, get Carson Wentz in week 9, yeah, it's a great matchup. We're likely to see J.J. McCarthy return. He's been dealing with that ankle injury. And we got to remember, J.J. McCarthy, I suppose an upgrade from Carson Wentz, but he still had 3 fumbles, 1 lost fumble in week 2, 2 interceptions in week 2, and 1 interception in week 1. So this is a great spot for a very, very good Lions defense who dropped in roster percentage because they were on bye week this past week. If they're out there and available, they are a must-start defense here in week 9 of the season. Regardless of who the quarterback for the Vikings may or may not be, and I do think it's going to be J.J. McCarthy this week, it's going to be a great spot for the Lions at home against a divisional opponent with a week of rest, a extra week to prepare. This is a great spot for the Lions. If they got dropped in your league, if they're floating around and out there, must start defense. No questions asked here in week 9 of the season. All right, the last team I'm going to talk about is the Green Bay Packers. Now, I always record these videos before Sunday Night Football has been played or Monday Night Football has been played, just the way I have to do it. And I'm actually not expecting them to have like a monster night against the Steelers or anything. They sit around 65% rostered, a little bit higher rostered, and I'm not going to really base this on what they've done on the season so far because they've been pretty disappointing for the most part on the season, even in some soft matchups. And I don't really care what they do in week 8 as well, but this is a good spot against the Carolina Panthers, who just gave up one of the best overall performances to an opposing defense in week 8 with 19 fantasy points allowed to the Buffalo Bills. It was an awful day for Andy Dalton getting the start at the quarterback position for the Panthers. He had an interception and 2 lost fumbles, only threw 175 total passing yards. And I will say that there is technically a chance that we see Bryce Young get the start in week 9, that he's able to come back from that ankle injury, but the odds are definitely against that happening. It's probably going to be Andy Dalton again in week 9, and if it isn't, then it would be Hendon Hooker would be the next player up here. So once again, this is just a good spot for the Packers defense, who, like I said, has been pretty up and down on the year and disappointing at times in terms of a streaming option. They are a little bit higher rostered for whatever reason against the Steelers. I mean, Aaron Rodgers coming off a pretty decent week 7 to say the least. So we'll see how that game shakes out. But once again, I'm not really basing this based on Sunday Night Football against the Steelers or what the Packers have done this year. It's just the fact that they are more than likely going to be playing Andy Dalton at home, who's coming off of a 3-turnover game. So it's a great spot for the Packers defense. They're out there and available. I know they are a little bit higher rostered, but they are out there. They are must-start defense here in week 9 of the fantasy football season. And very quickly here, I'll just run down the rest of the week 9 schedule in case you guys are curious why certain teams didn't make the list and all that stuff. You guys know I do this every single video. But first of all, Thursday Night Football, I don't care. I'm staying away from Thursday night matchups, which I know I started to say that, then the Chargers had a great Thursday night performance against the Vikings. But yeah, for the most part, I'm staying away from Thursday night football. Ravens, Dolphins. This Ravens defense is not great. Tua is coming off of a 4-touchdown game, so I don't think that there is anything here on either side. Niners, Giants. I could see the Niners having a decent day with Cam Scatterbo now out of the mix, and the Giants continuing to deal with some injuries. But I just don't know that I want to trust this Niners defense. They're coming off of a game where they had 2 fantasy points, so no thank you. I am out there. Falcons, Patriots is an interesting one. I actually really like the Patriots defense this week. I think that they are a defense that you should start regardless of if it's Michael Penix or Kirk Cousins at the quarterback position for the Falcons in week 9. But the Patriots are 91% rostered, so not really worth talking about. But yes, if you guys own the Patriots defense, you should start them this week. The Colts will be on the road to face the Steelers. I do like the Colts defense. I think you can start them every week. They haven't really been great the past couple weeks, and I don't think that the Steelers defense is the Steelers offense is awful, but if you own the Colts, they are solid, pretty safe floor on a week-to-week basis. Broncos, Texans, I honestly think you can start either of these defenses, but they're both really highly rostered. The Texans 62% rostered, not coming off of a great performance in week 8, and I don't know that I really would trust them against the Denver Broncos because I do believe in this Broncos defense, but Bo Nix has some moments that he doesn't have his best offensive days, but he's been pretty dang good the past few weeks. So I don't know that I trust them, but they are still an option for a floor. And then the Broncos defense is always worth a start. But I don't know. CJ Stroud also looked pretty good this past week, and the Broncos defense is 90% rostered. So, you can always start them, but Pat Surtain did get banged up this past week, so that's worth keeping an eye on. The Bears defense has been pretty solid on the year, but they did not look good in week 8. They're on the road here against the Bengals, but do I really want to start a defense against Joe Flacco right now? I don't think so, so I'm staying away from them. And yeah, Caleb Williams has not been playing his best football, but come on, we're not starting the Bengals defense. There's no way whatsoever I can trust this defense and, recommend you guys start them. Chiefs, Bills, no thank you. The Bills had a great week. I'm expecting the Chiefs to have a great week 8 as well. But this is going to be an offensive matchup. I'm staying away from these two teams. The Seahawks are the one team that I almost put in the video, but we're kind of in limbo here. Is Jaden Daniels going to start in week 9? Is he going to miss week 9? Is it going to be Marcus Mariota? Plus, haven't seen the Commanders play yet this week at the time of recording this. I'm expecting the Chiefs defense to play well against Marcus Mariota and company. But yeah, I do like the Seattle Seahawks defense this week if JD5 does not play in week 9. And they're sitting around 42% rostered. They've been very solid on the season as well with 9 or more fantasy points in every game except for 2. So yes, I like the Seahawks defense if Mariota is a starting quarterback in week 9. If it's Jaden Daniels, I think they're an okay floor play, but nothing more than that. Cardinals, Cowboys, come on. We're not trusting either of these defenses. There's a chance Kyler Murray plays this week, but Jacoby Brissett has filled in just fine for him. And even then, I am not trusting this Dallas Cowboys defense. They are probably the worst defense in the entire NFL. I know they were okay in week 7 and all that, but still, no way I'm trusting them, and no way I'm trusting the Cardinals defense against one of the best offenses in the NFL and the Cowboys. Very bad defense, very good offense for the Cowboys. There's just nothing here from a fantasy perspective in terms of potential starts for defenses. And there you guys have it there, my must-start defenses and streams for week 9 of the fantasy season. If you guys have any fantasy football questions whatsoever as we approach the week, don't forget I'm answering as many as I can in the comment section down below, so make sure you guys drop any fantasy questions that you have. And while you guys are down there, it does me a huge favor. It helps out the channel tremendously if you guys hit that subscribe button and that like button on the way out. And when the videos and playlists pop up on the screen, make sure you guys go check out all of our week 9 fantasy content as the week progresses, because we're going to have everything that you guys could possibly need to dominate this week of the fantasy season. And with that, I'll say thank you guys so much for watching and or listening. And remember, you saw it here on The Catch.